Welcome and thank you for joining this session. I'm really excited to guide you through today's topic because it's something we all use every day, often without even realizing it. When you think about how you process information, you might immediately think of reading or listening. But here's the fascinating part. Our brains are wired not only for words, but also for images, metaphors, and associations. Visual thinking is the process of transforming ideas into visual form through pictures, sketches, symbols, or even simple shapes. It helps us see ideas, not just hear or read them. And once we can see them, we can understand them more deeply, remember them longer, and explain them more clearly. Think of it like this. When you remember a story from your childhood, do you recall the exact words or do you see the scene in your mind? That's visual thinking in action. Your brain automatically builds a mental movie instead of a transcript. Today, we'll dive into that process. You'll discover what kind of thinker you are, experiment with visual imagery, and reflect on what pictures can tell us that words cannot. All the activities in this course are designed for group work, but don't worry, you can easily do them on your own too. I'll guide you step by step. If you're watching this individually, simply pause when needed, sketch your ideas, and use reflection instead of discussion. Activity 1. Discover your thinking style. Let's begin with a short self-assessment. You'll answer a few questions that will help you identify your dominant thinking style, the way your brain naturally prefers to process information. There are three main styles we'll look at: verbal, object visual, and spatial thinking. Let me explain each of them in a bit more depth. If you're a verbal thinker, you process ideas mainly through language. You love words, reading, writing, explaining concepts, and discussing them out loud. You probably remember information by taking notes, repeating key points, or making lists. For you, clarity comes through structure and storytelling. If you're an object visualizer, you think in detailed images. When someone describes a room, you can see it immediately. The colors, the layout, even the light. You notice details and shapes. You're often drawn to design, photography, art, or architecture. Anything that helps you visualize the world. And if you're a spatial visualizer, you think in patterns, systems, and movement. You don't just see the parts, you see how they connect. You're probably the kind of person who enjoys maps, 3D puzzles, building models, or understanding how things work together. As you go through the quiz, pay attention not just to your answers, but to your thinking process. Do you hear the words in your head before choosing? That's verbal thinking. Do you see images or snapshots of examples? That's object visualization. Do you imagine shapes rotating or connecting? That's spatial thinking at work. When you finish the quiz, take a few moments to reflect. What strengths does each thinking style bring to learning and teamwork? How can people with different thinking styles support each other? And why is it useful to understand your style when solving problems or collaborating in a group? The goal here isn't to label yourself. It's about awareness, understanding how your mind works, so you can use that knowledge intentionally. Now pause the video, complete the quiz, and take about 5 minutes to reflect or discuss your results. Activity 2. Show, don't tell. Welcome back. In our next activity, we'll move from thinking about thinking to actually seeing it in action. This activity is called Show, Don't Tell. You're going to look at an image. It might be a painting by René Magritte, an optical illusion by M.C. Escher, or a Dixit game card. Here's what to do. First, look at the image silently for about a minute. Don't rush, don't analyze, just observe. Notice what happens in your mind. What do you feel? What do you think of? What questions appear? Now write down 3 thoughts or questions that came to you. These don't have to be perfect or smart. They can be emotional, abstract, or simply curious. Next, choose one of those thoughts and draw it. But here's the twist. You can't use words. You can only use shapes, lines, or symbols. Don't worry about your drawing skills. The point isn't to make something pretty, It's to explore how ideas can transform into images. When you finish, take a step back and look at your drawing. What did you notice about your thinking process? Did translating your idea into an image make you see it differently? If you're working in a group, share your drawing and talk about what you tried to express. If you're working alone, just pause the video and reflect in your journal. Let's connect what you just did to some great visual thinkers in art. One of the most famous examples comes from René Magritte, a Belgian surrealist painter. You might have seen his painting of a pipe with the caption, "This is not a pipe." It's a brilliant reminder that an image is not the same thing as reality. It represents an idea. Another example is M.C. Escher, known for his impossible staircases and endless loops that play tricks on our perception. Escher's work challenges us to question what's real, what's illusion, and how perspective changes meaning. So, what are these artists really showing us? They're saying that images can challenge language. They can express things that words can't, and sometimes they can even contradict them. Pause for a moment and think about this question. What can an image communicate that language cannot capture? Now it's time to reflect on what we've learned. How does visual ambiguity, that open, unclear space in an image, create room for deeper thinking? What can pictures reveal that sentences often hide? I want you to think about Temple Grandin, a scientist and author who describes her mind as a series of movies. She literally sees her thoughts as visual sequences. When she designs something like an animal facility, she walks through it in her imagination before it even exists. This is the power of visual thinking. It allows you to see your ideas before you act on them. Now ask yourself, what have you understood, remembered, or solved better because you saw it instead of reading about it? Maybe it was a diagram, a doodle, or a mental image that suddenly made everything click. Take a few minutes to write your thoughts or share them with a partner. This reflection will help you connect what you've experienced today to how you learn every day. Today, we explored what visual thinking is, discovered our dominant styles, experimented with transforming thoughts into images, and reflected on how art and design can communicate ideas beyond words. You've taken your first step into the world of visual literacy, the ability to think, communicate, and make meaning through visuals. In our next lesson, we'll go even further. We'll learn how to apply visual thinking tools in everyday learning, teamwork, and problem solving, so you can use visuals not just to understand ideas, but to create and share them effectively. Thank you so much for joining this session. Keep your pen close, your curiosity alive, and remember, every line you draw is a thought made visible. See you in the next lesson.